Hey there, I'm Mr. C, and this is today's lesson where I'm going to teach you how to read fractions. I know, I can already hear the whining. Mr. C, why do we have to know this stuff? Look, language is important, and you have to know how to talk about something, and you have to know how to name its parts before you can really understand it. Okay, so we need to know how to read fractions so that we can start making models for it, not just in our head, but on paper, right? Because that's so foundational to understanding what fractions are, is to be able to talk about them and make models for them. All right, so let's dive right in. I'm going to teach you how to read fractions. Let's read it. Wait a second, Mr. C, you just said let's. Yeah, look at that THS at the end of that word. That sound is super important when you're reading fractions. Make that sound go. Oh, we're about to make it a lot. All right, I'm going to start with a basic fraction. Okay, I'm going to start. This is a fraction that you might see a lot. Now, I'm not going to read it yet. I'm going to read it in a minute. First, we're going to talk about the names of the parts. There's a number up top, there's a line, and there's a number at the bottom. So the number up top is called the numerator. Say that, numerator. And then there's a line, and the number on the bottom is called the denominator. Say denominator. Now, good. Now look, I've highlighted the D. There's a reason for that. Because D and down start with the same letter. And guess where the denominator is? It's down here on the bottom. D, down, denominator. That's how I always remembered it. And that made remembering where the numerator was easy, because I knew, well, the one with the D, the denominator, was down on the bottom. So that means the numerator is the number up on top. Okay, not so bad. All right, so now we know the names of the parts, the numerator and the denominator. Now let's talk about reading. We're going to read this fraction. Okay, this isn't 3 4s. It's not how you read that. No. You missed an important sound in there. When you read a fraction, all you do is say the numerator. So I just say 3. And then you say the denominator, but with this sound at the end. Okay, so I would say this denominator 4/4. You're going to have to practice that for a while because your tongue might not be used to saying numbers like that. Okay, this whole fraction is read 3/4. 3/4. Let's practice with a different one. Here's one. Let's see, 5/7. 5/7. Right, again, we say the numerator, and then we say the denominator with a th at the end. Let's do a bigger one. What? This rule goes all the way up to huge numbers? Yeah, it goes all the way up to huge numbers. Let's read this one. 67/89. 67/89. What? One more huge one. Let's do 804 1,000. 804 1,000. Whoa. Cool, but doesn't seem that tough, right? Now there's a few outlaws. There's a few fractions that you read in a weird way. I'm going to start with this one. Okay, you wouldn't say 1 tooth. 1 tooth. That probably sounds weird. No. When the 2's on the bottom, those are halves, right? We cut something into 2 pieces. We have halves. We'll learn more about that when we talk about models for fractions. But just know if the 2's on the bottom, we say halves. Okay? And then there's another weird one. Okay? If there's a 3 in the denominator, we don't say 3ths. 3ths. We say this fraction would be 1/3. 1/3. And then there's one more weird one that I'm going to talk about. Okay, this isn't 1/5. 1/5. It's 1/5. 1/5. These are the only weird ones. Okay, if a 2, a 3, or a 5 are in the denominator, you say something a little different. Halves, thirds, and fifths. Other than that, you just say the number with a th at the end. Right? Does that make sense? You got to practice it. Right? But first, let's talk about what we learned here today. So we learned a few things. We learned the names of the parts of a fraction. We now know what a numerator is and where it is, and we know what a denominator is and where our denominator is too. We also know how to read fractions, which is super duper important because guess what? You are about to try it. That's right. I'm not going to let you out of this without trying it first. I want you to write a fraction that has a 3 in the numerator and a 6 in the denominator. Then I want you to write another fraction that has a 1 in the numerator and a 3 in the denominator. And finally, I want you to write a fraction with a 7 in the denominator and a 2 in the numerator. Now pay attention because I tried to trick you there. Okay? And then finally, I want you to read these fractions. So you're either going to make a video and upload it to me, or you can bring it right to me and read it right to my face. I want you to create these 3 fractions and then read these 3 fractions, okay? And then I will see you next time when we start talking about what these fractions look like.